Good evening and welcome to this Farm Advisory Service webinar on the funding opportunities available for the future of sustainable farming. My name is Hazel Lawton from the SAC office in Lanark, and tonight I am joined by my colleague Tiffany McTaggart from the St Boswell's office. So to set the scene on the topic for this evening, the National Test Programme was launched in Scotland in the spring of this year, 2022, and it will inject 51 million into the industry over the next 3 years through a twin track approach. Track 1 will focus on business efficiency, with the support being targeted at incentivising farming businesses to take a closer look at their performance to determine a baseline, whether that be a carbon audit or soil sampling. This has been designed to help farmers meet the conditions of the future agricultural and policy support. Track 2 will include the design and testing of the tools that will reward farmers on the efficiency and environmental improvements that they make at farm level through the services through Track 1. So tonight we're only going to focus on the funding available through Track 1. We'll have taken a slightly different approach tonight, where we will not be taking questions at the end of this session. We'll cover all the frequently asked questions throughout the webinar. And as it's been recorded, if you have any specific questions for your business, we would love you to get in touch via the FAS helpline, and we'll give you all those details at the end of the webinar. But we won't be taking any specific questions this evening. So for now, I'll pass you over to Tiffany, who will go into the funding available through Track 1 in more depth.
Thanks, Hazel. So as Hazel said, I'm going to be talking about preparing for sustainable farming. This is part of Track 1 of the National Test Programme. So just to begin with, I thought I would do a little bit of background. So the reason this has come about is to incentivise farmers and crofters. So this is an opportunity for them to gain a better understanding of what their baseline figures are when it comes to carbon emissions, as well as for the soil sampling. And it is a step towards enhanced conditionality. So conditionality means that in the future, things like climate mitigation and how biodiversity is looked after and encouraged by businesses will be a condition of businesses meeting the requirements to receive agricultural support payments. So it's something that's actually really important to try and start looking at and considering to help you prepare for the future. So to be eligible for the scheme, it is open to everyone who is registered for funding with the Scottish Government Rural Payments Inspection Division. So this will be everybody who goes and fills in a basic payments scheme form each year. And you also have to have a Rural Payments and Services username and password. I think the majority of people will have that now, but if not, speak to your local advisor or your local ARPID office, and I'm sure they can help you set up a username and password, because all of the information for this is online and applications are made online as well. So that's why it's important to have. So what is included in the Track 1? Firstly, I'm just going to mention your herd stats. This will be available to all Scottish suckler beef herds. So the aim of this is to be able to generate insights based on your trends within your herds. So you're going to be able to look at your performance and have some nice charts and tables and KPIs for it. I'm not sure when this is available at the moment, but more information will be available from Scott EID when it is, as they are the ones who are running this. What I will be focusing on today is carbon audits and soil sampling. So carbon audits are used to identify what your farm's carbon footprint is. So this will take into consideration what your emissions are from your farming practices. So there's 3 types of gases which are being considered. There's carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane. So if you are a predominantly livestock farm, it's likely that you've got quite a high level of methane on the farm from enteric fermentation. So when you're doing a carbon audit, it identifies the sources of the emissions and the quantities of greenhouse gas emissions which are being released into the atmosphere. Just as another example, an arable farm is likely to have higher nitrous oxide emissions because of the high fertilizer usage. So the reason behind doing carbon audits is a chance for you to get a baseline, understand where your emissions are coming from and what the sources are. And this is an opportunity for you to then improve your efficiency, reduce your operating costs, and reduce your emissions. So along with your carbon audit, you'll also be needing recommendations of where efficiency can be improved. This is a key area. A lot of the issues for high carbon emissions is to do with poor efficiency. So having really efficient practices on your farms helps you to reduce emissions. So within the carbon audit as well, you are required to get an explanation of potential emission savings, which you could achieve if you go and change some of your management practices. So for a carbon audit, there's £500 standard cost funding available. So this is a standard cost. So regardless of if it costs you £300 to get a carbon audit done, or it costs you £800 to get a carbon audit done, they're offering you £500 of funding. So to be eligible for a carbon audit, you're eligible if you've not previously done a carbon audit. So this is if you've never done a carbon audit before, you can get a carbon audit done and claim the funding back through preparing for sustainable farming. If your current carbon audit is over 3 years old, you can also go and get a new carbon audit done and claim the money back. And the final way of having you being eligible is if you've made a significant change to your business. So you might have had a carbon audit done 2 years ago, and since having your last carbon audit done, you might have decided to sell all your livestock and only have your arable enterprises. Or you might have decided to convert from conventional farming to organic farming. So it's if you have made a significant change to the business. Those examples are very big changes, but there might have still been a significant change that you have made, and that could have a big impact on what your carbon emission results are. So it is worthwhile having another carbon audit done. So for having your carbon audit done, it has to be done through a carbon auditing tool which aligns with the PAS 2050 standards. So the Scottish Government did go and provide us with a list of potential companies which could be supplying you with carbon audits. These are Agricalc, Farm Carbon Calculator, Cool Farm Tool. So these kind of tools are ones which you could be using. There are other ones out there. You're not limited to this list, but just make sure that if you're getting your carbon audit done by someone out with the list which they've provided, make sure that they align to the PAS 2050 standards. On top of aligning to the PAS 2050 standards, they must also have recommendations from an FAS advisor. So FAS is the Farm Business Advisor Accreditation Scheme for Scotland. So this can either be an accredited or an associate advisor who is providing you with recommendations. So they need to be able to explain where possible emissions savings can occur, and they'll be able to also decipher what your carbon audit result means. It can be quite tricky with all the numbers. So they'll be able to help you understand your emissions and understand how you can make savings. At the moment, only Agricalc is supplying the recommendations alongside the report. So if you're getting your report done by someone else, make sure you try and get hold of your local FAS advisor to get your recommendations. You don't want to be caught out when you go and claim the money and realise that you can't because you have no recommendations for it. So moving on to soil sampling. So the aim of the soil sampling is to improve nutrient planning and nutrient management. So this is to try and encourage all farmers to make better use of nutrients, whether it's from inorganic or organic fertilizers, and making sure you're matching what you're applying to the ground to the crop requirements, but also to the soil requirements. So by trying to think about what you're putting on when, it should help to reduce the loss of nutrients to the environment, and it also has the additional benefits of reducing diffuse pollution, reducing your emissions, and improving carbon capture on farms. So the minimum requirement for your soil sampling is you need to test for pH, phosphate, potash, and carbon. So these are just the minimum requirements. If you want to go and sample for magnesium, sulfur, other micronutrients, or potentially if you're a vegetable farmer, you might be interested in heavy metals in the soils. These can also be sampled as well. You've just got to make sure you've got the minimum requirements that you're needing. So for the carbon test, there's 2 carbon tests which can be used. There's loss on ignition. So this measures the weight of a dried soil before and after burning away its carbon. So it's looking at what the percentage is of organic matter. Or the Dumas test, which similarly burns the carbon off but uses a higher temperature for a much shorter time. The carbon release is then measured as a gas, and then this is turned into a percentage. So both of these 2 methods are accepted, and both of these methods provide an accurate reading of your soil carbon level. So in addition just to thinking about sampling for your pH, pK, and carbon, you can also think about how you're testing. You could just do the basic W pattern in your field, or you could go and use GPS soil sampling. So it does depend on what your situation is, what's going to suit your business. And I think even if you've never soil sampled before, I think it's definitely worth at least getting a W pattern done in your fields and just start getting a baseline. So soil sampling, this helps the farmers to then target the nutrients. So once you've got your soil analysis results, you'll be able to adjust what nutrients you're applying depending on the analysis. If you've got a low soil status, you can apply more fertilizers. If you've got a high, you can reduce your fertilizer applications. You'll also be able to estimate your supply from organic manures and calculate your inorganic fertilizer requirements, and this allows you to build up and create a nutrient management plan. So for the soil sampling, claims can only be made once per year, and this is up to a maximum cost. So every farm has a maximum cost which can be calculated. So if you have a look on your IAX form, you'll find that you've got your Region 1 claim area. If you don't have Region 1 ground, I'm afraid you're not eligible for this. So you do have to have Region 1 ground. So from the Region 1 ground area which you've claimed on this year, you'll be able to divide the area by 5. So this is just to calculate 20% of your area. And then you can multiply this by 30. So this is £30 per hectare you're able to claim. And then this calculates the maximum claim amount that you can have. So that's the maximum claim amount. It doesn't matter if you go and sample, say, 25% of your farm or sample 10% of your farm. It doesn't matter. This is just for calculating what the actual cost is, which you can claim back. So I have an example here. So this is for a 100-hectare farm, and that's the total area which was claimed on the BPS form. Divide that by 5 to calculate 20% of the area. That gives us 20 hectares. And then multiply the 20 hectares by £30 per hectare to calculate the maximum claim, which is £600. So this is paid on an actual cost basis. So you will need to be providing your invoice. The VAT cannot be claimed back. And additionally, if you've gone and soil sampled the fields yourself and you're only paying for the cost of analysis, you can also claim back an additional £4 per sample for soil sampling. So that's in addition to what your soil sampling cost was, your soil analysis cost, sorry. We have had a few queries about the soil tests that should be used. The majority of people are probably soil testing and use the modified Morgan's method. This covers most of Scotland. In the West Highlands and the Islands, the Olsen test could be more appropriate. The best thing to do is speak to your local advisor or consultant and see what they recommend is best for your soil types. I have had one farm ask about using the Pocklington method, and this has been allowed. And as long as you're measuring the components which we talked about before, the pH, the P, the K, the carbon, those are the important things, and as long as those are measured. And once you've got the measurements, the recommendations for how you're adjusting your fertilizer usage, These should all be made using the SRUC fertilizer technical notes. So some of you may be on small farms or crofts, and of course you've got a much smaller area, and 20% might be a very small part of your farm. So for small farms, they have a minimum soil allowance of £300. So all businesses with under 50 hectares of Region 1 land can claim £300 worth of soil sampling. We've also had quite a few people ask us about what happens if they sample their whole farm in 1 year. I'm down in the Scottish borders where there's a lot of arable farmers who go and just sample their whole farm in 1 year, and they probably go and sample the whole farm every 4, maybe 5 years at the most. So they have gone and changed the requirements, and this allows you to make a claim over multiple years. So if you've soil sampled your farm since the 1st of January this year and you've sampled the whole area, what you can do is you can put in your invoice and supporting documentation this year to claim up to your maximum allowance. You can't go over your maximum allowance. And then next year, you can claim the rest of the cost up to your maximum allowance next year. So this allows you to spread the cost and you'll be getting the money back each year. So in addition to being able to get the money for the soil sampling, there's also a development payment available. This payment is only available in the first year of claiming soils. So there's a standard cost payment of £250. So if you claim soils this year and get your £250, you won't be able to get £250 again next year. So the development payment is to encourage applicants to spend time learning about nutrient management. So this is learning about the best practice for soil sampling, the best practice for nutrient management, referring back to technical notes. You might be taking professional advice or attending a monitor farm update, or attending meetings about soils and nutrients and green manures. So there's lots of different ways which you can go and expand your knowledge. And then from this, you'll then be able to either create a nutrient management plan, or if you've already got one, you can further improve your nutrient management plan. So you're thinking about making the best use of your nutrients possible. So this is your organic and inorganic fertilizer usage. So to claim for the soil sampling, you do need to have a carbon audit. So your carbon audit must align to the PAS 2050 standards, and it has to be completed within the past 3 years. So this is from the 1st of January 2019. So it is slightly over 3 years when we're sitting here in November, but it's from the 1st of January. So that gives you plenty of time. And if you've not completed one, make sure you use the funding that's also available to get one completed before you put your soil sampling claim in. So the date the carbon audit was completed is to be used to work out the date. So I've had a lot of people querying about not having mitigations for their past carbon audits. So I've had farmers who were part of the beef efficiency scheme, and they completed a carbon audit during 2019, which they completed themselves or with the assistance of an advisor, but they didn't receive any recommendations or mitigation measures at the time. So this is eligible for submitting when you submit your claim for your soil sampling. Your carbon audit has to have been completed before you make your claim. It doesn't matter if the soil analysis took place in January this year and then you completed your carbon audit in November this year. As long as when you make your claim, you have got your carbon audit. So making claims. So firstly, making claims for your carbon audit. You will need the date that your carbon audit was completed. You'll need to be able to provide the advisory firm's name and the FAS registration number. You'll also have to provide an invoice for the work which was undertaken, and also a bank statement showing the payment has been made for the audit. As I said before, It doesn't matter if your carbon audit costs £200 or £800, the standard cost is £500. So it doesn't matter what the value is on the invoice, it's just to prove that the work has been undertaken, and then the bank statements just to prove that it's been paid for. So making a claim for the soil sampling, you will need to be able to provide soil sampling results for every sample which you've claimed for, as well as the invoice for the soil analysis and the bank or credit card statements which are referencing the payment. And as well, you have to provide the details of your carbon audit. So claims can be made annually. So you can make a claim this year and you can make another claim next year, but it's one claim per option per year. So you can only put your soil analysis results in once. You can't go, and if you decide to sample a few extra fields, you can't go and put a second claim in during the same year. So when you're putting in your claim, all questions have to be answered, and claims for the work must be done by the 28th of February. So for the 2022 year, this is for work that's been undertaken from the 1st of January 2022 through until the 31st of December 2022. And then the claim deadline is the 28th of February 2023. If you are asking an advisor to make a claim for you, they will need to be mandated on Rural Payments and Services website. Although the claims are straightforward, and the aim of it has been to minimise the resource input and make it simple and straightforward. So it is hoped that all of you can complete your own claims. Once you've made your claim, payments will be made into your bank account. This will be the bank account which you have on the Rural Payments and Services website. So most likely where your BPS money goes into. And payments are aimed to be made within 30 days of the claim. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Excellent, thank you. And I believe you're going to show us how to make a claim in a wee minute, but just before we move on, just one of the common questions we get asked is, obviously you've said that we can only make one claim per business per year. What if a farmer's already taken a couple of samples earlier on in the year in the spring and now knows about the scheme and has decided to do more sampling? Can he put multiple soil analysis invoices onto the one claim?
Yes, you can go and claim for multiple soil analyses. This can only be up to your maximum limit, of course. So as long as you're up to your maximum allowance and slightly below, it's very easy just to put in both. What you may find that you'll need to do, like so with your soil analysis results, you may need to print them off and scan them all on together as one document. As you may find when you're trying to upload the documents, you might find that it's not letting you upload as many documents as you want. So you might need to amalgamate the likes of your results or your invoices together, so it's uploaded as one. But it doesn't matter if you've gone and taken a sample in January, another one in March, and some more in October, and you can still put in for the claim for all of those and claim up to your maximum allowance.
Okay. And then obviously we mentioned about the whole farm, that the changes that were made to the rules to allow people to claim their whole, sample their whole farm in 1 year and claim over multiple years. In that scenario, if somebody's done 3 fields in the spring and does the rest of their farm now, that doesn't count as sampling your whole farm that you can then claim over multiple years, does it?
They have gone and claimed their whole farm. They have gone and sampled their whole farm, and they are allowing you that if you've gone and sampled a bigger area, then you can split it over 2 years. Some people might sample half their farm this year, half their farm next year, and then nothing for 2 years. So they are allowing an invoice to be used again, or some soil analysis results to be used again for you to claim the rest of your allowance. But it's also being aware that you can claim your maximum allowance the first year, and if your second year, you claim up to your maximum allowance. But if the difference isn't your maximum allowance, you can only go up to what the difference was in the invoice amount, rather than being able to try and overclaim.
Perfect, thank you. And I guess one other question that we're getting asked a lot as well in the Lanark office is about the mandate side of it. So we're getting a lot of farmers that are assuming that because we do their IACs that we're already mandated to do their carbon audit and soil analysis claims. How do they go about, if they don't have a rural payments account, if they don't want a username and password, how do they go about mandating their advisor to do their claim on their behalf if they wish?
So if you're going to be claiming for preparing for sustainable farming, you do need to be mandated. So just because you've do their BPS form does not mean you're automatically mandated. You can fill in a mandate form or get in touch with your local RPID office.
Excellent, thanks Tiffany. And I'll let you move on to show us how we do a claim.
Perfect, thank you. So what you'll need to do is go onto the Rural Payments and Services website. And once you're onto the website, if you look down on your left-hand corner, you've got all schemes, and you can click on See All Topics for all schemes. And this will take you into a page that shows you all the different schemes that are available. And the second one down, we've got Preparing for Sustainable Farming. And if you just click on that, and then on this page here, up below the text, it's got a nice big button, Make Your Carbon Audit or Soil Analysis Claim. So you can just click on the blue button that says Start Your Claim. This will open up a new window, and it is just for claiming for preparing for sustainable farming. It provides you with a bit of information on the carbon audits, the soil analysis, using the service, and the before you start. So this information on before you start is what we covered just before about what you're needing. So you do need your rural payments and services login details, when your carbon audit was completed, and as well as invoices, your soil analysis results. So make sure you have a read at the information before you start, make sure you gather it all together, and then it'll make it very easy to get your claim submitted. Once you've read all that, you can click on the Start button, and then you can log in. So once you've logged in, you'll be able to then decide what you would like to make a claim for. So we'll just start here at clicking Carbon Audit, and then clicking Continue. So to start with, you'll be able to click Confirm Your Business Details. And when you go onto that page, it will show you your BRN number, your location name, your business name, and you can confirm that that's the right business. And it will also confirm if you would like to use your usual email address for correspondence, or if there's a different email address you want to use for correspondence for the Preparing for Sustainable Farming. Once you filled that one in, you can then check if you can make a claim. So it asks you when your carbon audit was completed. So you've got to remember for the carbon audits, they must have been completed since the 1st of January 2022. If you completed it before that, you won't be able to claim. And you've also got to be aware that it can't be double funded. So as the next page shows, have you already received funding for this carbon audit? So if you've received Farm Advisory Service funding for it, you won't be able to claim again because that's double funding. So your carbon audit, your claim value is a maximum standard cost is £500. You will then be asked to fill in your carbon audit details. So your carbon audit advisory firm, I know a lot of people have used AgriCalc and SAC Consulting for that. So you can just put in SAC. And then you've got your FAS registration number. So the agent who has completed your carbon audit recommendations, they will be able to provide you with their FAS registration number. You can then fill in the date when your carbon audit was completed, and you'll also be asked what your total greenhouse gas emissions for the farm are. Then we've got a few extra questions. Where is this the first carbon audit which you've done? Why did you apply for the carbon audit? And did you find the carbon audit beneficial to your business? So you're then able to go on to the next pages. You can attach your supporting documents. So you've got your invoice, your bank statement, and then you can review all of this information before you submit it. There's also a button here. You can save your progress and sign out, so you can go and continue it again a different day. You can also click the back arrow at the top if you just want to go back, if you say clicked on the wrong button and want to do a soil analysis claim instead of a carbon audit. So for the soil analysis claim, it is very similar to what we had before for the carbon audit. We've got the page at the beginning where you're going to confirm your business details, and then you can check how much you can claim. So have you completed your carbon audit within the last 3 years? You've got to have a carbon audit within the last 3 years to be able to make the claim. You can then select when your soil analysis was completed. So you've got to remember soil analysis can be claimed from the 1st of January to 31st of December. And have you claimed funding for the soil analysis this year? This is obviously you going in to claim. You can then fill in how much did you pay for your soil analysis. So this is excluding VAT. I am just going to put £500 in there just now for the hypothetical scenario. How many samples were included in the soil analysis? So this is a total number of samples from all fields tested, not just the total number of fields. Say I did 10 samples. And then you can click continue. Did you collect your soil samples yourself? You've got to remember there's a £4 which you can collect if you've got your soil samples yourself. If you've paid for somebody else to do it, you can then click no. Did your soil analysis include pH, pK and carbon? This is compulsory, so make sure you have a look back at your soil analysis results and just check. So then it shows you what your soil analysis claim value is. So for this claim, it's £790. There's this useful button here saying how it's calculated. And on here, you can see that we've paid £500 for the soil analysis. We have done 10 samples at £4 per sample because I have gone out to collect the soil samples myself. So that's £40. And then the cost of time spent researching best soil analysis nutrient practice, that's £250. That's of course only available in the first year that you go and claim for soil analysis. So that's a total claim value of £790. You'll then be able to fill in your details about your carbon audit, who your carbon audit was completed by, when it was completed, and if you found it beneficial. I'll just go back to the main list. Again, you can then go and attach your supporting documents, your invoices, your bank statements, and your analysis documents. And then you can proceed to review, and then you can make your declaration, everything's correct, and submit your claim. So it is fairly straightforward. I don't feel like there's too many complicated questions when you go in to make your claim. But of course, if you need any help, I'm sure your local advisor or consultant would be happy to help, or your local RPID office, I'm sure, will help you as well.
Thanks, Tiffany. That's been a really in-depth run through of the Track 1 funding through preparing for sustainable farming, and great to see that the system's now up and running and it's fairly simple to use. I think the 2 points where I see people getting a bit stuck is the advisor FAS number and possibly the total emissions, where you need to enter your total emissions for your farm. It's worth saying on the carbon audit report that you receive from your advisor, regardless of what software you use, the FAS number should be detailed on the front of that report, and the emissions will be within the report as well. So you should have all that information to hand. If you're not sure that you're entering the right number, then don't hesitate to give your advisor a call and just make sure you're putting in the right number, because there is a register of FAS advisors. So you want to make sure you're putting in the right number and not holding up your claim for any reason. So finally, we'd be very grateful if you could fill in the feedback form that will be sent out to you following this webinar. The link is also on the screen if you want to access it that way, but you will get an email receiving it. And your feedback really is important for how we deliver the Farm Advisory Service programme. As it says on the screen, it helps us improve what we're doing, identify any areas where you feel we've maybe not covered. And because Farm Advisory Service is Scottish Government funded, we look to design the service through your feedback. So it really is vital that you fill that in for us. So I will just finish by thanking you all for joining tonight and thanking Tiffany for giving such an in-depth overview of the Track 1 funding. Thanks and good night.